The purple-skinned alien researcher dropped his observation device, his three eyes widening in horror. He couldn't believe what he was seeing through the long-range monitors. On the small blue planet designated as Earth, a human had just jumped out of a perfectly good flying machine. "Director, you need to see this immediately," he called out to his superior. Director First-Class Monitor blinked all four of his eyes as he watched the recording. The human was falling through the air at terminal velocity, seemingly enjoying the experience. Even more shockingly, before hitting the ground, the human activated a thin fabric device that slowed their descent. "They do this for entertainment?" Monitor asked, his voice trembling. "Yes, sir. They call it skydiving." "And that's not all," the researcher said, pulling up more footage. "Look at these recordings from the past week." The screens lit up with various scenes from Earth. Humans climbing sheer cliff faces without safety equipment, others riding boards on giant ocean waves, and some strapping rockets to vehicles to break speed records. Each new image made Monitor's skin shift to a paler shade of purple. "We need to study this more closely," Monitor decided. "Find me a human expert, someone who can explain this madness." That's how Tom Miller, a psychology professor from a small-town university, became the first human to officially contact the Galactic Council. When the alien's hologram appeared in his office, he didn't scream or faint. Instead, he offered them coffee and asked excited questions about their faster-than-light travel technology. "Professor Miller," Monitor began formally, "we have been observing your species and have serious concerns about your collective mental health. Why do humans deliberately seek out dangerous situations?" Tom laughed, making the aliens flinch at his seemingly inappropriate response. "That's just human nature," he explained, taking a sip of his coffee. "We push boundaries. We explore. We challenge ourselves." "But why?" the researcher demanded. "Our studies show that every other intelligent species develops to avoid danger. It's a fundamental survival trait." Tom walked to his office window and pointed outside. "See that woman jogging? She's training for a marathon. Technically, running 26.2 miles puts enormous strain on the body. It's dangerous, but humans do it to prove they can." The aliens watched in fascination as Tom pulled up videos on his computer. Rock climbing, auto racing, experimental aircraft testing. Each new activity made them more agitated. "This can't be normal," Monitor insisted. "Surely these are just a few unstable individuals." Tom shook his head, smiling. "Nope, pretty standard stuff. Wait until you see our extreme sports competitions." The aliens spent the next few hours watching X Games footage. They saw humans performing backflips on motorcycles, skating down handrails, and doing acrobatics on snowboards. Each new video made them more confused. "And your authorities allow this?" Monitor asked, baffled. "Allow it? They sponsor it. Look, danger isn't always bad. Controlled risk-taking has led to some of our greatest achievements. Would we have planes if the Wright brothers hadn't risked their lives? Would we have reached the moon if astronauts weren't willing to sit on top of massive rockets?" The aliens conferred among themselves in their native language, their skin colors shifting through various shades of concern. Finally, Monitor turned back to Tom. "Professor Miller, we would like to conduct a more thorough study. Would you be willing to act as our guide to human recklessness?" Tom grinned. "On one condition, let me take you skydiving." The alien's horrified expressions made him laugh again. "I'm kidding, though that reaction is exactly why we need to understand each other better. You see danger where we see opportunity. You see recklessness where we see courage." As the alien hologram flickered away, Tom could hear them already drafting their report to the Galactic Council. He had a feeling this was just the beginning of a very interesting cultural exchange. In their ship orbiting Jupiter, Monitor and his team began composing their preliminary report. Human Species Study, Day 1. Initial observations suggest humans may be the only known species that has evolved to actively seek out dangerous situations. Further study is urgently needed to determine if this trait makes them a threat to galactic stability, or possibly the most valuable addition to the Galactic Council in the last millennium. 2 weeks after their first contact with Professor Miller, 3 alien observers walked through Times Square in their human disguises. Their advanced holographic technology made them look perfectly normal, but they still couldn't help flinching every time a yellow taxi sped past them. These humans, Observer Pat whispered to his companions, they trust their lives to complete strangers operating these fast-moving metal boxes. That's nothing, Observer Mike replied, checking his tablet. According to the schedule, we're about to witness something called street performance. They watched in horror as a human juggler rode a unicycle on a thin rope strung between 2 lampposts. Below him, crowds of humans didn't even run for cover. They just stood there, recording on their phones and throwing money into a hat. Are they paying him to risk his life? Observer Jim asked, his holographic disguise briefly flickering from shock. Their mission was simple: spend 1 month on Earth documenting all instances of what they considered reckless behavior. But after just 2 weeks, they had filled enough reports to crash their quantum computers twice. The day before, they had visited something called an amusement park. Humans were willingly strapping themselves into machines designed to flip them upside down at high speeds. Even small human children were begging to ride these death traps. Look at this data, Pat said, pulling up his findings. Humans have entire professions based on danger. They call them stunt performers, test pilots, and deep-sea welders. Their investigation took them to a volcano research station in Hawaii. The alien observers watched in disbelief as scientists lowered themselves into active volcanic vents to collect samples. "Excuse me," Mike asked one of the researchers, maintaining his human disguise. "Why don't you use drones?" The scientist, Dr. Ann Roberts, looked up from her equipment. "Oh, we do use drones, but sometimes you just need to get up close and personal with the magma, you know. Nothing beats direct observation." No, they didn't know. In fact, none of them could process the concept of getting up close and personal with molten rock. Their next stop was even more puzzling: a cave diving expedition. Humans were swimming into underwater caves with limited oxygen supplies, squeezing through tight spaces that no sane being would ever enter. "For fun?" Jim asked the dive instructor in disbelief. "Well, partly for fun," the instructor grinned, adjusting his oxygen tank, "but also for science, exploration, and the thrill of discovering something no one has ever seen before." By the 3rd week, the observers had to revise their entire understanding of risk assessment. They discovered humans had actually developed complex systems to make their dangerous activities safer, but instead of using these systems to avoid risks, they used them to take even bigger ones. The final straw came during their visit to something called an ice climbing festival. Humans were climbing frozen waterfalls with sharp metal spikes strapped to their boots and hands. "I need to sit down," Pat said, watching a climber hang by one ice axe to take a selfie. That evening, in their hidden ship disguised as a water tower, the 3 observers compiled their report. "After extensive field research, we must report that human recklessness extends far beyond our initial assessments. They have built entire cultures, sports, and scientific endeavors around deliberately seeking out dangerous situations. Most concerning is their ability to normalize these behaviors. Young humans are actively encouraged to take calculated risks. However," Jim added, "we must note that this seemingly suicidal tendency has led to remarkable technological and scientific achievements. Their space program, for instance, began with humans willing to sit atop experimental rockets." Mike typed the final observation. "Most worryingly, their reckless nature appears to be contagious." After 3 weeks of observation, this research team finds itself curious about what riding a roller coaster might feel like. Request immediate extraction before we become contaminated by human ideas about fun. As they sent their report to the Galactic Council, a notification popped up on their screens. They had been invited by Professor Miller to observe something called a monster truck rally. All three observers looked at each other, their holographic disguises showing matching expressions of horror, and, was that a tiny bit of excitement? The grand hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. 500 representatives from different alien species packed the circular chamber. Their skin colors shifted through various shades of anxiety as they reviewed the reports about humans. High Counselor Rex, a tall being with crystalline features, called the emergency session to order by tapping his ceremonial staff 3 times. Fellow council members, his voice echoed through the chamber. We are here to debate Earth's inclusion in the galactic community. The observation reports are disturbing. The massive screen behind him displayed videos from Earth, humans walking on tightropes between skyscrapers, racing vehicles through desert storms, and swimming with large ocean predators they called sharks. These creatures are clearly insane, shouted Representative Bolt from the technology sector, his mechanical parts whirring in agitation. They deliberately jump out of space stations for their astronaut training. But look at their progress, argued Representative Flora, her leaf-like hair swaying with excitement. In just 100 years, they went from primitive flying machines to landing on their moon. Their very recklessness drives innovation. The debate grew heated. One faction wanted to quarantine Earth immediately. Another suggested studying humans from a safe distance. The third group proposed immediate membership, arguing that human unpredictability could be useful. They let their young play in things called treehouses, one representative shouted in horror. Elevated platforms built by untrained younglings. Yes, but they also run into burning buildings to save others, countered another. Their recklessness serves a noble purpose. Just then, the chamber doors opened. Jack Stone, the first official human ambassador to the Galactic Council, walked in. He looked around the massive alien chamber with an impressed whistle. Sorry I'm a bit late, he said casually. Had to finish my morning wingsuit practice run through the canyons. The chamber fell silent. Several representatives fainted. You did what? High Counselor Rex asked, his crystal features clouding with shock. Oh, just flying through canyons in my wingsuit. It helps me clear my head before important meetings. Jack pulled out his phone. Want to see the video? The footage of Jack soaring between narrow canyon walls at high speed caused mass panic in the chamber. 3 more representatives fainted. One started reciting ancient prayers. Ambassador Stone, Rex said carefully, you do understand that we are here to debate whether humans are too dangerous to join the galactic community. Jack put away his phone and straightened his tie. With all due respect, High Counselor, I think you're looking at this all wrong. Yes, humans take risks. But we calculate those risks. We prepare for them. We use them to push boundaries and achieve the impossible. He walked to the center of the chamber. Did you know that every major breakthrough in your own civilizations came from someone taking a risk? Someone trying something that others called crazy. The council members shifted uncomfortably. He had a point. But you do these things for entertainment. Representative Bolt protested. You have something called Parker, where you jump between buildings. Jack smiled. The same skills that let us do parkour helped us develop better rescue techniques for disaster zones. The technology we developed for extreme sports has led to safer spacesuits. Everything we learn from taking risks helps us progress. A quiet voice spoke up from the back. It was Observer Pat, still shaking slightly from his time on Earth. He's right. During our investigation, we saw how their reckless nature led to remarkable innovations. And I tried something called a roller coaster before leaving Earth. Gasps filled the chamber. It was fascinating, Pat admitted, looking down at his feet. High Counselor Rex raised his staff for silence. Ambassador Stone, the council needs time to process this information. But first, one final question. What is the most dangerous thing you have ever done? Jack thought for a moment. Well, there was this one time I tried my wife's experimental cooking. He laughed, but stopped when he saw no one else was laughing. That was a joke. Humor is another human trait we should probably discuss later. As the council prepared to vote on Earth's membership, several younger representatives could be heard quietly asking Jack about this thing called bungee jumping. The emergency alarms in the Galactic Council chamber broke through the ongoing debate about human membership. Red lights flashed as screens around the room lit up with urgent data streams. "Report," High Counselor Rex commanded, his crystalline form glowing with concern. Chief Scientist Vex rushed to the central platform, his tentacles flying over multiple holographic keyboards. "The star HD 7249 has become unstable. Our calculations show it will go supernova within the next 14 days. The chamber erupted in chaos. HD 7249 wasn't just any star. It was surrounded by 3 inhabited solar systems. Over 12 billion sentient beings lived in its light. Jack Stone, still present from the earlier debate, watched as the alien council members argued about evacuation protocols and safety measures. Their faces showed the same expression in any species: fear. How long would a standard evacuation take? Rex asked, trying to maintain order. With all available ships in the sector, Vex calculated quickly, minimum 30 days. We'd lose billions. Jack raised his hand. Several council members flinched, probably expecting him to suggest something reckless. They were right. "What if we tried something crazy?" he asked. The room fell silent. High Counselor Rex sighed. "Ambassador Stone, this is not the time for human creativity. Billions of lives are at stake." "Exactly," Jack said, walking to the central display. "Show me the experimental technology you have but haven't approved for safety reasons." Chief Scientist Vex blinked all 6 of his eyes. "How did you know about?" "Because every advanced civilization has them," Jack interrupted. "The too risky to use folder. The maybe someday projects. We humans have hundreds of them." Reluctantly, Vex pulled up another set of files. Jack pointed at one immediately. "There, the Mark 7 emergency wormhole generator. Why isn't this in use?" "It's highly unstable," Vex explained. "The energy requirements are enormous, and the collapse risk is." "But it would work," Jack pressed. "If everything went perfectly, it could move entire planets." "Theoretically, yes, but the risk of catastrophic failure is 82.6%. No sane species would." Vex stopped, looking at Jack with sudden understanding. "Oh no." Jack grinned. "Oh yes, get me Professor Miller on the line. And I need access to Earth's top pilots and engineers." High Counselor Rex raised his staff. "Ambassador Stone, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? If you think I'm suggesting we use unstable, experimental technology to save billions of lives." Jack's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Then yes, that's exactly what I'm suggesting. But the risk is better than certain death," Jack finished. "Look, this is what humans do best. We take calculated risks when the potential reward outweighs the danger. And saving 12 billion lives, that's worth any risk." The council chamber buzzed with nervous discussion. Representative Flora spoke up first. "The human has a point. We've been debating their reckless nature as a weakness. But perhaps it's exactly what we need right now." On the main screen, Professor Miller's face appeared. "Jack, what's the situation?" "Tom, how fast can you gather a team of the best daredevils Earth has to offer? And I mean the real crazies. Test pilots, extreme athletes, people who think normal spaceflight is too boring." Tom's eyes lit up. "How crazy are we talking?" "Experimental wormhole technology with an 82.6% chance of catastrophic failure." "Give me 6 hours," Tom replied without hesitation. "I know just the people." The council watched this exchange in amazement. No safety committees, no years of testing, just immediate action in the face of danger. High Counselor Rex stepped forward. "Ambassador Stone, if we approve this human solution, you understand the risks, the possibility of failure." Jack nodded seriously. "High Counselor, humans have a saying. Where there's a will, There's a way. We're about to show you exactly what that means. As the council voted to approve the emergency measure, Representative Bolt leaned over to Observer Pat. Are all humans this optimistic about potential death? Pat, remembering his time on Earth, shook his head. No, some of them are much worse. The Galactic Council's main hangar had never seen anything quite like the team that arrived from Earth. 6 humans stood before the massive experimental wormhole generator, looking at it like children eyeing a new toy. Now that's what I call a big boy, said Bill, a retired test pilot who had spent his life flying experimental aircraft. He walked around the machine, whistling appreciatively. Next to him, Dr. Kate, a quantum physicist with a reputation for unconventional experiments, was already diving into the machine's specifications. The power output is incredible. The instability makes perfect sense. They're being too careful with the containment field. The other team members included Ray, a deep-sea rescue specialist, Maria, an expert in experimental propulsion, Alex, a professional risk assessor who ironically loved base jumping, and Pete, a demolitions expert who had saved countless lives by defusing impossible bombs. Jack Stone watched as his hand-picked team immediately started breaking every safety protocol in the Council's manual. They removed protective panels, rewired systems, and basically rebuilt the machine in ways that made the alien engineers cringe. What are they doing? Chief Scientist Vex asked in horror. Those safety systems took years to design. They're removing the training wheels, Jack explained. Sometimes the safest option is to give the machine more power, not less. Dr. Kate looked up from her work. Your safety systems are actually causing the instability. It's like putting too many restrictions on a river. It just builds up pressure until something breaks. We need to let the energy flow more naturally. The aliens watched in fascination and terror as the humans worked. They had never seen anyone modify highly advanced technology with such casual disregard for personal safety. The humans even joked while they worked. "Hey Pete," Ray called out, "remember that time we had to hotwire that nuclear submarine?" "Good times." Pete laughed, casually rerouting plasma conduits. "This is way more fun, though." After 12 hours of modifications, the team gathered to explain their plan to the council. Maria stood at the holographic display. "Right, here's the deal," she began. "We've modified the generator to create a series of smaller, more stable wormholes instead of one big one. Yes, it means more jumps, but also less chance of everything going boom. The original safety systems were trying to hold too much power in check," Dr. Kate added. "We're going to surf the wave instead of trying to stop it. It's like riding a tsunami. You can't fight it, but you can ride it if you're crazy enough. And who's going to pilot this modified device?" High Counselor Rex asked, already dreading the answer. "We all are," Bill said with a grin. "Each jump needs different expertise. I'll handle the navigation. Kate monitors the quantum field. Ray handles pressure issues. Maria keeps the engine singing. Alex calculates the risks in real time. And Pete makes sure nothing explodes, unless we want it to." The council members looked at each other nervously. This was completely against every protocol they had, but time was running out for the 3 endangered systems. "The success rate calculations," Vex began. "Don't tell us," Alex interrupted. "We work better without knowing the odds. In fact, if they're really bad, we tend to do even better." Jack stepped forward. "Council members, I know this seems insane. By your standards it is. But this is humanity at its best, taking the impossible and making it possible, not through careful planning, but through bold action and a crazy belief that we can do it." The humans had already started their pre-mission ritual, checking each other's equipment while trading jokes about their past near-death experiences. "One last question," Rex said. "What happens if something goes wrong?" "Then we improvise," Bill replied casually. "It's kind of our specialty." As the team made final preparations, Observer Pat whispered to his colleagues, "Remember when we thought humans were insane for jumping out of planes?" "Yes," Observer Mike replied, watching the humans practically rebuild alien technology from scratch. We were thinking too small. The modified wormhole generator hummed to life, its energy pattern completely different from its original design. As the human team took their positions, they looked more excited than scared. Ready to make history? Jack asked. Nah. Maria grinned. Ready to save about 12 billion lives while doing something incredibly stupid and awesome. The modified wormhole generator lit up the space around it with crackling blue energy. Inside the control room, the human team strapped themselves into their stations, while the Galactic Council watched through reinforced windows. First jump in 10 seconds. Bill announced from the pilot's seat, his hands dancing over the controls. Everyone remembered the plan. You mean the crazy plan where we jump between dying star systems using experimental technology? Maria grinned. Yeah, hard to forget that one. The first wormhole opened, a swirling vortex of purple and blue energy. The aliens gasped as Bill aimed straight for it. That's not the entry point. Chief Scientist Vex shouted. They're going to. Trust them, Jack interrupted, watching his team work. The ship dove through the wormhole at an angle that made the alien engineers cover their eyes. They emerged perfectly positioned above the first endangered planet. First system locked. Alex called out. Beginning evacuation sequence. Dr. Kate's modified transporters began beaming the planet's population to the massive rescue ships waiting at safe distance. The process that should have taken days was happening in hours. Energy spike. Pete warned, his hands flying over the explosion containment systems. The wormhole is getting spicy. Surf it, Dr. Kate yelled. Use the excess energy for the next jump. They rode the energy wave like a surfer riding a tsunami. The aliens watched in horror as every safety protocol they'd ever written was ignored, bent, or completely rewritten. The second system went smoothly, almost boring by human standards. But the third system, closest to the dying star, proved to be the real challenge. We've got problems, Ray shouted as warning lights flashed across his console. The star's radiation is interfering with the wormhole stability. How long until total failure? Alex asked, running calculations. About 3 minutes. Perfect, Maria said, pulling up her engineering controls. That gives us 2 minutes longer than we need. The team worked in perfect chaos, the kind of synchronized madness that only humans could achieve. When one system failed, they were routed through another. When standard procedures failed, they invented new ones on the spot. The main generator is down, Pete reported. Backup systems? Bill asked, wrestling with the controls. What backup systems? We took those out to add more power to the main systems. Even better, Dr. Kate shouted over the alarms. Reroute everything through the coffee maker. The what? The aliens watching couldn't believe their ears. Don't ask, Jack called back. Just watch. Somehow, impossibly, it worked. The jury-rigged system held together just long enough to evacuate the last planet. As they prepared to jump back, every alarm in the ship went off at once. We've got about 30 seconds before this whole thing falls apart, Maria announced, surprisingly cheerful given the circumstance. Can we make it back? Alex asked. Bill laughed. Wrong question. The right question is, how much style can we do it with? The ship spun through the final collapsing wormhole just as the star began its final death throes. They emerged back at the council station spinning wildly, trailing sparks and smoke, with half their systems fused and the other half running on what Dr. Kate would later call hopes, dreams, and duct tape. As emergency crews rushed to the smoking ship, the human team emerged laughing and high-fiving each other. Now that, Bill said, his hair still smoking slightly, was a proper bit of flying. Did anyone get readings from that last jump? Dr. Kate asked excitedly. The physics were amazing. 12 billion lives saved, Alex reported, checking the final numbers. 0 casualties. 1 slightly melted coffee maker. A moment of silence for the coffee maker, Pete said solemnly. Then they all burst out laughing again. High Counselor Rex approached them, his crystalline form showing a mix of horror and admiration. You did it. But how? Everything you did violated safety protocols. Jack smiled. Sometimes the safest option is to do the dangerous thing quickly rather than the careful thing too late. Also, Maria added, holding up the remains of the coffee maker, never underestimate human engineering. We can make anything work with enough coffee and creativity. The council members looked at each other, finally understanding why humans' reckless nature might be more gift than curse. Behind them, the human team was already discussing how to improve the wormhole generator for next time. 1 month after the successful evacuation mission, the Galactic Council gathered for a historic session. The Grand Chamber looked different now. The formerly rigid seating arrangements had been relaxed, and some council members were even trying out human-style casual Friday clothing. High Counselor Rex stood at the center platform, his crystalline form gleaming under the lights. We are here today to discuss our findings about human nature, particularly in light of recent events. The massive screen behind him displayed footage from the evacuation mission, showing the human team's unorthodox but successful methods. Our initial assessment of humans as dangerously reckless, Rex continued, was both right and wrong. They are reckless by our standards, but this very trait may be the greatest gift they offer to the galactic community. Chief Scientist Vex stepped forward, still looking slightly traumatized from watching humans modify his life's work in mere hours. The human approach to the wormhole generator revealed something profound. While we spent decades trying to make it perfectly safe, they understood that sometimes the safest path is through the danger, not around it. Also, he added, holding up a twisted piece of metal, I still cannot comprehend how they successfully created a stable wormhole using a device designed to make hot beverages. Professor Miller, now appointed as Earth's chief scientific liaison, tried not to laugh. We call that creative engineering on Earth. Sometimes the craziest solution is the best solution. The Council had prepared a formal presentation about humanity's risk assessment abilities, but it was interrupted by a commotion at the chamber entrance. Jack Stone walked in, followed by his evacuation team, who were all wearing strange equipment. Sorry we're late, Jack grinned. We were setting up a surprise. What? What are you wearing? Rex asked cautiously. Safety gear, Bill replied cheerfully. We're going to demonstrate something called indoor skydiving, using the council chamber's anti-gravity maintenance shaft. Several council members started to protest, but to everyone's surprise, Observer Pat spoke up. I volunteer to try it first. The chamber went silent. Pat's fellow observers stared at him in shock. What? Pat said defensively. After watching humans save 12 billion lives through reckless behavior, I've been thinking, maybe a little controlled risk-taking isn't so bad. Over the next hour, the chamber turned into something unprecedented in Galactic Council history, a combination of formal ceremony and adventure sports demonstration. Aliens who had never considered voluntary risk-taking found themselves strapping on safety gear and learning about the joy of controlled falling. High Counselor Rex watched it all with growing understanding. Perhaps, he announced, this is exactly what our civilization needs. Not recklessness for its own sake, but the courage to take calculated risks in pursuit of progress. The Council voted unanimously to grant Earth full membership with a special designation, Innovation Consultants to the Galactic Community. In times of peace, the official declaration read, humans will help us push boundaries safely. In times of crisis, their unique approach to problem-solving may save us all. Also, their coffee beverage is now classified as a Class A technological enhancement tool. As the ceremony concluded, Representative Flora approached Jack with a question that had been bothering many council members. But aren't humans ever afraid when they do these dangerous things? Jack smiled. Of course we're afraid. Courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about not letting fear stop you from doing what needs to be done. Or what's fun to do, added Maria. currently teaching a group of curious aliens how to operate a simplified hoverboard. The day ended with a sight never before seen in the Council's history: aliens and humans together, celebrating not just survival, but the joy of pushing boundaries. Even High Counselor Rex tried the hoverboard, though he insisted no footage be kept of his first attempt. As the celebrations wound down, Professor Miller found himself standing next to Observer Pat, watching the mixed crowd of humans and aliens sharing stories and adventures. "You know what the real revelation is," Miller said thoughtfully. "It's not that humans are reckless by nature. It's that everyone has a little bit of that adventurous spirit in them. Sometimes, they just need permission to let it out." Pat nodded, adjusting his new skydiving helmet. "Indeed. Though I must admit, I draw the line at something called bungee jumping." "Give it time," Miller laughed. "Give it time."